Have you ever had a feeling so strong that you started believing it was the truth? You woke up anxious and suddenly you convince yourself something is wrong. Someone doesn't text you back and your mind starts telling you they don't care. You make one mistake and suddenly you're questioning whether you're good enough. You have a bad day and somehow your brain turns it into my whole life is falling apart. And here's the crazy part. Nothing necessarily changed. The situation may still be exactly what it was 5 minutes ago, but your interpretation of it changed. And once the emotion gets loud enough, we stop asking questions. We start believing the feeling. We've all done it. I've done it. You've done it. They've done it. They continue to do it. We've made decisions while angry. We've quit while frustrated. We've pushed people away while afraid. We've convinced ourselves something wasn't possible because we were scared to find out. We've taken one moment and turned it into a prediction about our entire future. But what if there's a difference between what you feel and what is actually happening? What if anxiety isn't always intuition? What if fear isn't always a warning? What if sadness isn't proof that your life is hopeless? What if rejection isn't proof that you're unworthy? And what if the voice telling you this is who you are is simply your brain trying to make sense of what you're experiencing? Because here's something we don't talk about enough. Your feelings can be completely real and still be wrong about the story they're telling you. That's not an attack on your emotions. It's actually the opposite. It's about understanding them because if you don't understand your emotions, they can start making decisions for you. They can choose who you trust. They can choose what opportunities you can take. They can choose when you quit. They can choose who you let into your life. They can even convince you to become smaller just to make you feel safe. And eventually you stop asking, what do I actually want? And start asking, what will make me feel safe right now? Those are two completely different questions. So today, we're going underneath the emotions. We're going underneath the anxiety. We're going underneath that inner voice that keeps telling you what everything means. We're going to talk about why your brain creates these stories, why they can feel so real, why we sometimes react to things that haven't even happened, and most importantly, how we learn to feel something without automatically becoming it. Because maybe the goal isn't to stop feeling. Maybe the goal is to stop letting every feeling write the story of your life. With that, this is Thoughts of the Challenge, and I am your host, your boy Mito, and we are back on another session of breaking down life challenges and how to make it feel and fulfill our life's goals. And with this section and sessions of neuroscience, I bring you our understandings. I bring you our challenges. I bring you things that we can learn and be a part together. So let's get into it. Fear is not a forecast. This is one of the hardest lessons I've had to understand. Fear feels like a prediction, but fear is not necessarily a prediction. It's an emotional response to perceived threats or uncertainties. Think about how many things you've been afraid of that never happened. You worried about the conversation, then you had it. It wasn't as bad as you imagined. You worried about losing the relationship. You didn't. You worried everyone would laugh at your idea. Nobody did. You worried you weren't ready. And somehow you figured it out. How many times has your brain screamed, don't do it? And later you realized I was scared, not unsafe. Those are very different things. The difference between I feel and I am. Listen carefully to the language you use with yourself. There's a massive difference between I feel like a failure and I am a failure. Between I feel alone and nobody cares about me. Between I feel afraid and this is dangerous. Between I feel rejected and nobody wants me. That tiny shift in language creates a psychological distance. You're describing an experience instead of turning an experience into an identity. Instead of nobody likes me, say, I'm noticing that I'm having the thought that nobody likes me. Now you're creating space, and space gives you an opportunity to investigate. Your emotions are not the enemy. I don't want this episode to become ignore your feelings. That's not the message. Your feelings matter. Your emotions carry information. Anger might tell you something feels unfair. Sadness might tell you something matters. Fear might tell you that something feels uncertain. Loneliness might tell you that you need connections. But here's the mistake we make. We take the signals and turn it into a conclusion. Fear says something might be wrong. We hear something is definitely wrong. Sadness says I'm hurting. We hear my life is terrible. Anger says something crossed the boundary. We hear I need to destroy this relationship. But where's the emotion? That's where the emotion starts driving the car. And sometimes emotion is a terrible driver. Have you ever made a permanent decision from a temporary feeling? This is the question I want you to sit with. Have you ever quit something because you were frustrated? Ended something because you were angry? Sent the message you regretted because you were hurt? Spent money because you felt empty? Stopped pursuing a dream because you felt embarrassed? Told yourself, I don't care anymore. When deep down, you care too much. That's the emotional brain looking for an immediate relief. And immediate reliefs can be seductive. You feel anxious, you avoid the situation. For a moment, the anxiety drops. Your brain learns avoiding equals relief. So the next time anxiety appears, you will avoid it again. And now you've accidentally trained the cycle. Research on anxiety and emotional regulation has found that strategies such as avoidance and suppression can be associated with worse emotional outcomes, while approaches such as acceptance and cognitive reappraisal can help people respond differently to emotional experiences. That's huge because sometimes the things keeping anxiety alive isn't the feeling itself. It's what we do every time the feeling appears. The anxiety loop. Let's break it down. Something happens equals your brain interprets it equals your experience and emotion equals you create a story about the emotion equals you recreate the story equals your brain learns from the reaction. Let's give an example on how this really works that you can really take into understanding. The event, your boss doesn't smile. Interpretation, they're upset with me. The emotion, anxiety, the story, I'm probably in trouble. Your behavior, you avoid your boss. The result, you feel a temporary relief and your brain learns avoiding a boss reduces anxiety. Next time the same pattern happens faster, that's conditioning. That's learning. That's the brain doing what the brain does. So how do we break it? We don't fight the brain. We teach it. We don't scream, stop being anxious. We become curious about the anxiety. We don't say, I shouldn't feel this. We say, okay, I'm feeling this. What is my brain predicting right now? That question is powerful because now you're observing the story. You're not automatically becoming the story. So step one, name what you're feeling. Before you solve anything, name it. I'm anxious. I'm angry. I'm embarrassed. I'm lonely. I'm overwhelmed. I'm angry. This sounds simple because it is. But naming an emotional experience can help create distance between the experience and your reactions. And here's the important part. Don't immediately explain it. Just name it. I'm feeling anxious, period. Not, I'm anxious because everyone hates me. You don't know that yet. You've named the emotions. You haven't accepted the story. Questions to ask yourself. What am I actually feeling right now? Where do I feel it in my body? What happened immediately before this feeling appeared? What am I afraid this feeling means? Step two, separate the fact from the story. This is where things get powerful. Take a situation. I want you to write 2 columns. Fact, story. The fact, what objectively happened? Story. What am I telling myself it means? For example, fact, she hasn't responded to my messages. Story, she doesn't care about me. See the difference? The fact is observable. The story is interpretation. Let's keep giving you some examples with this here. Fact, I didn't get the job. Story, I never succeeded. Fact, my video didn't get many views. Story, nobody wants to hear what I have to say. Fact, I made a mistake. Story, I'm incapable. This is one of the most useful exercises you can give to yourself because it teaches you to stop confusing interpretation with evidence. I want you to ask yourself, what do I know? What am I assuming? What evidence supports this interpretation? What evidence challenges it? Is there another explanation? That last question is gold. Really sit down with this and give yourself a chance to know the difference. Step 3, give your brain another possibility. This is called cognitive reappraisal. It doesn't mean lying to yourself. It means looking at the situation from another reasonable angle. Research on reappraisal has found that deliberately changing how a situation is interpreted can reduce negative emotional responses. And the neuroimaging research has linked reappraisal with increased recruitment of prefrontal regulatory networks and reduces activities in regions involved with emotional responding. So instead of I failed, try this attempt didn't work. Instead of they rejected me, try this person didn't choose me. Instead of I'm behind, try I'm moving at a different pace. Instead of I'm terrible at this, try I'm inexperienced at this. That's not positive thinking. That's precision. And sometimes precision is more healthier than positivity. Step 4, let the feeling exist without letting it make the decision. This might be the hardest part. You can be afraid and still act. You can be sad and still take care of yourself. You can be angry and still wait before responding. You can feel rejected and still refuse to reject yourself. You can feel uncertain and still move forward. You don't have to eliminate an emotion before you live your life. That's the trap. People wait to feel confident and then they'll start. They wait until they feel motivated and then they'll work. But sometimes the feeling changes after the actions. You don't always think your way into courage. Sometimes you act your way into it. Let's talk about that inner voice again. As we've said in many episodes now, this inner voice is always with us and is always trying to fool us into believing. But sometimes you just have to take control. I want you to imagine something. Imagine someone you love came to you and said, I made a mistake today. I'm a complete failure. Nobody respects me. I should just give up. Would you say, absolutely, you're worthless? Probably not. You'd probably tell them, it's all right, you're human. One mistake doesn't define you. Take a breath. Let's figure out what happens. So why do we give ourselves a completely different standard? Why does compassion become available to everyone except ourselves? Maybe overcoming these stories isn't about becoming louder than the inner critic. Maybe it's about becoming wiser than that. Here's something I want you to do. Think about one sentence you've been telling yourself for years. Maybe, I'm not good enough. I'm always broke. I'm unlucky. People always leave. I can't trust anybody. I'm too old. I'm too late. I never finish anything. Now ask, when did I first learn this? Where did it come from? Who said it? What happened? And here's the question that could change everything. Is this still true? Not, was it ever true? Because maybe it was. Maybe you really did struggle. Maybe someone really did hurt you. Maybe you really did fail, but the fact that something happened doesn't mean it has to remain your identity. The body remembers. Sometimes you don't need a conscious thought to trigger an emotional response. A smell, a song, a place, a facial expression, a certain tone of voice, a date on the calendar. Something can remind your nervous system of something you've experienced before. Suddenly, your body reacts. Heart rate increases, muscles tense, breathing changes, you feel uncomfortable. And then the mind tries to explain the feeling. Something bad is happening. But sometimes something isn't happening. Something is being remembered. That's why understanding yourself matters. Your body may be responding to the present through the lens of the past. I'm going to give you a series of questions. I want you to really take in the understanding. And I know I've given you several questions so far, but everything I'm asking you today and asking you from now on is to be helpful, to open your mind to seeing what it is you are doing to yourself and how we can fix it. Let's start. What if the things you're afraid of isn't actually happening? What if you're reacting to what happened before? What if you're carrying yesterday's emotional weather into today's sky? Think about that. Maybe the person you're talking to isn't the person who hurt you. Maybe today's opportunity isn't yesterday's failure. Maybe this relationship isn't the last relationship. Maybe this chapter doesn't deserve to be judged by the previous chapter. The brain learns from experiences, but learning doesn't mean permanent imprisonment. I'm going to give you a 3-step reset. Things that will be helpful in the longevity of you taking down and bringing yourself back into the responsibilities of healing yourself. When emotions get loud, remember, number 1, feel. What am I feeling? Don't run from it. Don't shame it. Notice. Number 2, question. What story am I attaching to this feeling? Separate the event from the interpretation. And number 3, choose. What action serves the person I want to become? Not what will make this feeling disappear immediately, but what choice will I respect tomorrow? That's the difference between emotional reaction and emotional regulations. This is where I want to slow things down and give you a set of questions. Again, we're basically teaching ourselves how to become. And the only way to do that is by breaking down what we did to be in the first place. So let's silence ourselves, silence our mind, take a deep breath. Have you ever mistaken anxiety for intuition? Have you ever mistaken loneliness for proof that nobody cares? Have you ever mistaken rejection for proof that you're not worthy? Have you ever mistaken failure for identity? Have you ever made a decision because you were angry and regretted it once you calmed down? What story does your anxiety tell you? What does your inner critic say when you make a mistake? Where did that voice come from? What would change if you stopped treating every thought as an instruction? What would happen if you allowed yourself to feel fear without obeying it? And here's the big one. What if the life you want is waiting on the other side of a feeling you've been running from? Sit with that. I can tell you now that I've had many moments in life where I felt I should have given up, or I should have stopped, or I should have just embraced the normality, the comfortness, the fear, the PTSD, the trauma. Even with this accident I just got in, it really cluttered my mind into thinking that this wasn't meant for me, that this time I should accept what I have now and stop trying to go for what I want because it's that it wasn't meant for me, or I believed it wasn't meant for me. But then I had to remember that these things that I'm teaching, these things that I'm learning, it's not just me talking, but me experiencing and taking on the choices that I have taken as my life now. Because if I wasn't able to live what I say, then why am I even saying it to begin with? If I'm not able to learn from the problems, learn from the things that have gone on and choose how I wanted to see the story, then what am I really getting out of this? I've been in many, many places in life, from homelessness to imprisonment to divorce to loneliness to pain and suffering to addiction. And also I felt love, peace, harmony. I felt whole, complete. I felt all the areas of life that have not only drawn me in the wrong areas, but also drawn me to a place where I can feel comfortable with myself, feel and know that everything was going to be okay. And I know what it feels like to be afraid and still keep moving. In the most recent of times, getting into this accident, I didn't know how much it was going to affect my mind, in which it made me feel so uncomfortable in my recuperation and my recovery that I didn't know if I was going to continue being on this camera, recording content and being able to give you these lessons, because I didn't know if I would be able to live up to the lesson. But I had to find it in myself to see beyond those moments, beyond that trauma, beyond that set of experiences, and build back what I know who I truly am, and what I deserve to be, and what I deserve out of life, and how I can make it become more by being present here in today's moment and knowing that what happened to me happened, but it didn't stop me from getting back up and continue on going. The hard truth, your feelings deserve compassion, but they don't automatically deserve authority. Bring that back. Your feelings deserve compassion, but they don't automatically deserve authority. Your feelings deserve compassion. They deserve attention. They deserve understanding, but they don't automatically deserve control over your life. Anger doesn't have to choose your words. Fear doesn't have to choose your future. Sadness doesn't have to define your worth. Anxiety doesn't get to predict tomorrow. And one terrible day doesn't get to become your entire life story. Trust me on that one. Maybe you spent your years fighting yourself, trying to eliminate every negative thought, trying to become positive enough, trying to stop feeling scared, trying to become someone who never doubts themselves. But maybe that's not the goal. Maybe the goal isn't to become someone who never feels fear. Maybe it's becoming someone who knows what to do while feeling it. That's strength, not the absence of emotion. the ability to experience emotion without surrendering your entire life to you, because you're going to have bad days. You're going to get rejected. You're going to fail. You're going to be misunderstood. You're going to have moments where you question everything. That's being human. The goal isn't to create a life where nothing hurts. The goal is to build a mind that knows how to move through what hurts. So the next time your brain tells you you're not good enough, pause. Ask, is that fact or is that a feeling? When anxiety says something terrible is going to happen, ask, what evidence do I actually have? When sadness says that nothing will ever change, ask, am I predicting my entire future from how I feel today? And when your inner critic says you are your mistake, answer, no, I am the person learning from them. Because here's the thing, you don't have to believe every story your mind tells you. You can listen without obeying. You can feel without becoming. You can remember without reliving. You can be afraid without turning around. Maybe that's what taking your mind back really means. Not controlling every thought, not eliminating every emotion, but finally understanding that you are allowed to pause between what you feel and what you choose. That pause is small. Sometimes it's only a few seconds. But inside that space, there is a choice. And inside a choice, there's a possibility. So here's the question I want to leave you with. What feeling have you been allowing to tell you a story about yourself that may not be true? And if that story isn't true, what story are you ready to stop caring? Because your feelings are part of the story, but they don't have to be the author. And with that, this is Thoughts of the Challenge. And I am your host, your boy Mito. From this side of the screen to the next, I appreciate all the love and support I've been getting, all the likes, all the comments, all the shares. Please continue to subscribe. Please continue to let your friends in, and please share your story. You just might save somebody's life today. Thank you all. I'll see you on the next go round.